Every now and then, a car maker will come out with what it calls a game-changing vehicle. Well, this is unquestionably the very car for Volvo. It's the new XC90. It's 12 years in the making, but was it worth the wait? The XC90 is tasked with forging a new path for the Volvo brand internationally, which is no small task given the elite company it finds itself in. Priced from $89,950 in Australia, the new model will initially be available in a choice of 2 different grades and 2 different engines. A top-spec model featuring a new hybrid drivetrain will arrive in the final quarter of 2015. The 7-seater is the first model to be conceived under the Chinese ownership of Volvo, which took effect in 2010. Not that any of that Chinese influence is present in the cabin. In fact, if anything, I'd say it feels like the inside of a fine Italian leather store. You've got this beautiful smell and a really nice air-filled cabin. In fact, Volvo actually calls it a Swedish sanctuary. Take a look around the cabin itself and there are some really neat touches. There's only 8 physical buttons and switchgear up front, which creates really nice minimalist environment. The centerpiece is this tablet style touchscreen. You've got all your different applications, entertainment, driving settings, everything else there to play with. And to go alongside that is this really nice digital instrument cluster. It creates a really nice environment, and the key thing is that it's all functional and easy to use. Also housed in those displays is an extensive list of safety equipment fitted to the XC90, such as a collision mitigation system, lane departure warning, and the latest driver aids. But as with many other facets of this vehicle, the most advanced safety technologies are rated as optional extras. And this is where the XC90 really starts to set itself apart. At 4.95 metres long, there's plenty of space in the interior, and what I like about it is that it's actually really functional in the way that it's put together. You've got excellent headroom and legroom up front, but also plenty of space in the second row, and what I like about it is that you can adjust it to your needs. You can slide both outer seats forwards and backwards. Add to that the fact that you've got rear air vents at both the eye level and the knee level, and it makes for a very comfortable package. In fact, the company says anyone up to 170 centimetres tall can sit in the rear 2 pews. The other really neat function for the XC90 is its inbuilt child booster seat. Not only is it practical, but it's sure to be a hit with the youngsters. With all seats occupied, the XC90 has a useful 398 litres of boot space, which is increased to 1,091 litres as a 5-seater. The space is owed partly to a new leaf spring rear end, which occupies less underbody space than a regular coil-sprung setup. So let's rewind back there for a second and just have a think about exactly what's new in this car, because there's really plenty of it. A new family of Drive-E 4-cylinder engines, an all-new platform for this car, and also Volvo's highly touted new composite leaf spring layout in the rear that's transversely mounted, so between the rear wheels instead of going from the front to the back. And I've got to say, in isolation out on the road, all of those elements bode pretty well from the outset. The car ambles along pretty comfortably and it has all the qualities that you'd expect for this sort of price point. We spent most time in the base model D5 Momentum. It comes fitted with a twin-turbo diesel motor that produces 165 kilowatts and 470 newton metres. Volvo says it is capable of propelling the XC90's 1970 kilo mass from 0 to 100 in 7.8 seconds, consuming an average of 5.7 litres per 100 k's. For a car that weighs this much, even though it's lost about 125 kilos from its predecessor, that's a lot to ask for a little 4-cylinder engine. It does a really good job of pulling away from the line in a linear fashion. There's a strong mid-range punch, and on paper it's quite efficient as well. The reality is, though, that it has to work pretty hard to make that sort of progress. I think in daily driving it'd be fine, but when really pushed, you can feel the diesel strain. It becomes quite audible from the driver's seat. The engine is mated with a smooth shifting 8-speed transmission that drives all 4 wheels via a Haldex all-wheel drive system. In city conveyance, the XC90 impresses with its sound damping and overall refinement. However, some country back roads create quite a different impression of Volvo's in-house suspension tuning. The main downfall for this car really is that new leaf spring layout. On paper, it does read really well. As we mentioned, it liberates quite a lot more rear space, especially for that rear seat. On the road though, it equates to a very brittle and sometimes sharp ride. On B-grade country roads that I'm on at the moment, in particular, you feel like the car's never really settled. Over little patchwork stuff, it just feels busy all the time. And then you hit bigger, sharper bumps in the road, you can actually feel them thud through the cabin, particularly in the rear. Now the immediate trade-off for that would normally be a really sporty ride, much like BMW's X5, but the XC90 in that regard is really middle of the road. It's neither overly sporty, but it's not really that good in terms of overall compliance either. So you're not really getting, the beneficial trade-off that you might think you're going to get. In terms of everything else, well, the steering's quite well weighted. It's got a nice on-centre feel. It feels quite stable at high speeds. It sort of lacks some of the feel that you're after though, through faster bends. And the front wheels tend to push a little bit wide when you're really pushing on. There are a couple of ways to get around that harsh ride though. One is to lower the wheel size. We found a huge difference in the ride quality when on 20-inch wheels against 19-inch. The smaller wheels really take the edge out of bumps. The ride is far less busy, but it's still noticeably firm. And that's where Volvo's optional air suspension system could be a worthwhile investment. It does a really good job of taking the edge out of bumps, and compared with the standard suspension, it's almost chalk and cheese. It feels much more livable. It's much better over those small pitter-patter style bumps, and while it is a little bit firm over sharper undulations and it's still got a tendency to thud, it's definitely more compliant. In addition, the dynamics feel better resolved overall, there's better body control, and the car feels easier to live with. The XC90 brings some strong incremental improvements over its predecessor, and while you're paying more for the product, it feels better polished across most areas. The problem for Volvo is that there are 5 or 6 other products in this category that do the exact same thing. And where Range Rover stands for off-road versatility and BMW stands for on-road dynamics, Volvo's really middle of the road. They're really touting the safety card more than anything else. And therein lies the problem. Yes, safety is a major drawcard for the XC90, but you could probably say the same thing of every other competitor in this segment. Add to that the fact that new products are coming from Mercedes-Benz and Audi soon, and this vehicle could have a very strong battle on its hands.